Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Star Stuff Podcast, where we talk all things Star Wars. My name is Colin,
And I'm Josh.
and we have been off for the past couple of days because we had the holidays, we had Thanksgiving, we had Black Friday. So we were, very, very busy. Right now, we're on that month break of Star Wars, and we're not getting any Star Wars until January 4th. Um, and that's when season 2 of the Bad Batch will be released. But we will do a full breakdown of episode 12, the season finale of Andor. And if you wanted to listen to our commentary on the episode, that's up on Patreon right now. But without further ado, Josh, take us away.
All right. So, I think one of the cool things is I wanted to talk about the opening for Andor. How you always hear different theme music. This theme music is definitely like the end all music. So you get drums in there, trumpets in there, which is actually a callback or a call forward or to what happens later in the episode with the drumming band and the marching band that they have going down the street. But yeah, I love the how every episode it was changing.
Yeah, the like way that each episode would, like, of the opening theme would kind of foreshadow like of what the ending like music and like of the band and everything was going to be, because every
Mhm.
single episode it feels like they would add some type of different element of music in there, and then at the end you like just hear like the full like marching band, but we have no idea what's going on with that because we're like, oh, okay, until we actually start watching the episode and you're like, oh, cool, all right, that all makes sense, that's great.
And then we basically open up on is it Ferrix?
Yes.
And you have all the Imperials coming down. So we get to see Death Troopers. We get to see just more of that broken shipyard that Cassian took off from the first 3 episodes. Pretty cool. What do you think of the shot?
I
They're coming in at
loved
night.
I
Yeah.
loved the cruiser. I loved the lightning. It reminded me a lot of the end of episode 3, of where the Emperor is coming back from Mustafar with Anakin
Hmm.
on Coruscant. So I thought of that. We never really saw rain or lightning before on the planet until this last episode, so I thought that was cool. It
Hmm.
also reminded me of the opening of Jedi Fallen Order, of where we go
Yeah, it's
on
funny.
the planet. Um, how do you pronounce it?
Which one?
The 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 scrapper planet of where it opens on Cal, like while working on the ships.
I forget what it's called. Hmm. Good question.
It is not Pakara. It's, oh man, it's because of, I know where that's from. I just know that it's something in the lines of that, and they actually go there in Jedi Fallen Order, but they also go there in the Bad Batch season 1 as well.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I love that shot, and most of the time you don't see anyone in those type of shuttles unless they are a kind of top tier villain. So like the Emperor, Vader, Thrawn, Tarkin, you like, so it was interesting to see like her using it. But yeah.
And then we basically pick up with Dedra walking through, and she goes to check up on her prisoner. Hmm. What did you think of that scene? The cute little scene of still having her in jail, still being
Uh
tortured.
well, I don't think she was being tortured anymore at that point. I think her mind was torturing herself because she was just so out of it, and you just kind of saw that. I don't think she fully lost her mind, but I think it reminded me of in Batman, of where Scarecrow would give people the fear toxins,
Hmm.
and then like they would slowly kind of go crazy, and that's what it kind of looked like. um but it looked like she was not fully there, but just enough where like she would still be able to go forward in life, and I think she will.
I mean, yeah, when I saw Bix, I was like, still here.
Going strong.
I mean, yeah, I feel like they're just keeping her there just in case Cassian comes to try and pick her up.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what happens.
And then our next scene is the son of, I don't know what his name was, but the
It was the guy with the green jacket. He like
did we
helped
actually
out
get an
Bix.
intro?
I don't think so. Because of like because I know in the first couple episodes we actually do meet him. He actually does help out. He does help out Bix because he's the one that like has the actual um the radio in one of his towers.
Yeah.
So it's not revealed that it's his real son until you see him after his son is kind of it's foreshadowing that he's making a bomb, and then at the end of the scene you like see that he's inspired to make it by looking at a hologram of his father that was killed. We didn't see him die in screen, but that's what's hinted at pretty much. But yeah.
So how do you feel about the ending being on this planet?
I mean, it kind
It
of
started
made
there and ends there. I don't know I'm okay with it because I like anything to do without having the focus be on Tatooine. So as long as we're not on Tatooine, I'm a very happy man.
Yes, you and my wife, because she hates Tatooine. I mean, I'm okay. Honestly, here's my thing about Tatooine. I am okay with it, with going back to Tatooine, as long as every time that we go back to Tatooine, we see a different part of it. So it's not like we're going back to Mos Eisley every time.
Wow, sand.
Well, I mean, okay. Are you telling me that you weren't at least excited to see a different part of Mos Espa
No,
in the book of Boba
absolutely
Fett? I
not.
thought that was awesome. I was like, wow, we never seen this part of Tatooine before. And going to Freetown, exploring more of the Dune Sea in Mando season 2. I thought all that was great. And seeing Mando go through Beggar's Canyon of where Anakin went years before with his pod racer, I thought that was awesome. I thought it was fantastic. So I'm okay with it as long as
For me in that sense, all I kind of think is that like if this is meant to be on the outskirts of the like anywhere to the point where no one would come and look for Luke, at least explain that in the show and be like, hey, you know what? This is now the most bustling city ever because I don't know, for whatever reason, that's why people go there. Because it doesn't make any sense to me that all these main characters keep ending up on this planet. That's why I get annoyed with it.
Yeah. Yep. But I like that they ended on the planet of Ferrix, because you're right, that's where it started, and it also made sense. It would be weird to end it where where like the beginning of the season began, because so much happened in those first 3 episodes. And even though it doesn't feel like all these characters are directly like, I mean, technically they are all directly connected, but it was very cool to see all of these character storylines just kind of mash like together. And I don't think people this whole thing is a very big deal of the Rebel Alliance, because in Legends the Rebel Alliance was formed very, very differently. And for those that are fans of The Force Unleashed, there's a reason why they put like those Force Unleashed Easter eggs in the show, because in the first Force Unleashed game, it showed you how the alliance was formed. And it did have Bail Organa and Mon Mothma. And And at the end of the game, it shows you like where they go back to Kashyyyk, and they're like, "Oh, hey, here's the symbol of the Rebel Alliance," and then that's how we find out that the Rebel Alliance was born. So it's like awesome to pull these elements from Legends, like
Mhm.
not fully connected, where it's like Star Killer is canon, because he's definitely not canon. But it was very cool to see those elements pulled from Legends to put into here, and you can see the inspiration from those games.
Mhm.
And I I'm hoping that we get more stuff like that, because the first thing that popped in my head when I saw the character Luthen was he could be a Jedi. I could totally see it right off the bat. We'll definitely talk about that later, but I could definitely see that. I could see him, being very similar to General Ram Koda, where like he like still has that thrive to fight like against the dark side of the empire, but he's doing it in his own way. And that's what Ram Koda was doing in Force Unleashed, except he was just going full out. He wasn't hiding. He was like going full out Jedi. But with Luthen, he's doing it, but he's doing it undercover. And I really think that he could be a Jedi. I really do.
I, yeah, maybe. I think he could be a Jedi. I think that he understands that if they completely do make a faction, basically, of the Rebel Alliance, that it will have to be good no matter what. It has to look good, and it has to have a leader who looks good. And I feel like he understands that the only way to get there is to build a foundation of things like bad. So it's cool seeing his whole kind of in the gray situations of being like, I will completely sacrifice myself, all my happiness, all that kind of stuff that I used to have, to know that other people in the future will be able to take what I built here and make it good for other people. Because I don't think that if the general public knew how much like like Luthen's character and Saw's character were actually doing, they would support them. I don't think that they would. But only until you start getting people like Mon is when the Rebel Alliance starts truly building, in my opinion. Which is great because our next scene after the completion of the little pipe bomb that he's making is Mon Mothma picking up her husband from the casino.
Yeah.
Which is a very, very fun little detail of her out scheme. I really like it. So we all know that she is being spied on right now by the cab driver. And so I think that what she's doing is knowing that she can basically, because you know how she was talking to the mob boss
Yeah.
from before, and she was like, "Oh yeah," like he's like, "Yeah, I know your husband because he spends a lot of money." So now she has a cover on why she would need to take out all the money that she has, is basically paying off her husband's debt, because everyone knows that he's a high gambler. And that's why she even says in the cab in this scene, she's like, "Hey, can we give us privacy?" Even though she knows that he's listening. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Hey, like stop gambling, all this kind of stuff. You're spending all the money, da 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 da." So it gives her more of a cover, which is pretty cool. I like seeing
Mhm.
her out plan.
Yeah, and it's even more funny because her husband is has no clue. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, and she knows he's lying, and it's
Mhm.
just yeah, it's just so funny to me. But we also get a an Easter egg to our favorite place from the sequel trilogy, Canto Bite. Like wow.
Yeah, everybody's favorite.
Yeah. So yeah, so we end up getting a shout out to Canto Bite from the sequel trilogy. Now I didn't know this until the Lego Star Wars game, and this shows you how much invested I am in the sequel trilogy. Because like it's great. There are elements of it that I like, but I didn't know that Canto Bite was not the name of the planet. the
That's the
actual
name of the
game.
casino. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh shoot. I was like, oh man, wow, because of in the Lego Star Wars game, the and the Skywalker saga, uh the like planet's there, but it doesn't tell you it's Canto Bight. So I was like, what planet is this? And I land on it and I'm like, oh, gotcha. Which fun fact for that game, there are new character packs coming out every week. This past weekend, the Book of Boba Fett one came out where you can play uh, Cobb Vanth, Black Chrysanthemum, and Cad Bane and some other characters. I mean, I still play the game, but I haven't unlocked the new pack yet, so I'm gonna have to check that out. But yeah, but anyways, there is a planet in motion. We know this. We actually didn't get that much of Mon Mothma in this episode. We didn't get Saw Gerrera at all, and that was very unfortunate because Saw's a great character, and it's great that he made a cameo in the show. But I'm hoping the next season that we get a lot of him. Like I want a lot of Saw Gerrera.
I think I really enjoy her just finally giving in and realizing like things aren't going to get better in the way that she wants it for her whole family. This is now bigger than just her family, and she's figuring a way out. And even we see that with her daughter later. But yeah, it's pretty interesting now that we're seeing all these chess pieces put into place where she's going to be like, "Yep, I can get out of this, no problem."
Yeah.
We like Cinta and having a conversation that they're basically all looking for Cassian at the moment. They're all explaining what's going to happen with the whole funeral.
Yep. How do you feel about them actually getting pretty much cremated and getting put into bricks that go into different homes like around the town and everything?
I really like that detail. That was a really cool detail. Kind of like a little this is what we all kind of like build each other up, figuratively and literally. I thought that was really cool. Yeah. But yeah, it's like a blue collar worker planet, and I think that's really cool to see in Star Wars and see how close they are. And it's kind of like, yeah, this is basically the baby steps of the rebellion, and it's cool to see that on this planet, especially.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we get Cassian coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he is sneaking his way through. I love that we're seeing a lot of stormtroopers like in the show, but we didn't see that much of them doing, actual like action stuff until this final episode. This final episode of the big fight that we're about to talk about in a second was just fantastic. It had stormtroopers. It like had like that kind of classic Star Wars feel, like in battle wise. But we see him kind of walk up the stairs. He is walking past a brick, which we find out it's his dad, and then he has a flashback, which is super cool.
Yeah, he's like a whole flashback to how they basically used to be scrappers and fixing up old pieces of equipment that were really easy to fix and clean up, and you could sell just like a brand new one. And he gives a really cool line.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like, and the way they do flashbacks in this, I really, really enjoyed it. Probably more than what they did in the Book of Boba Fett. And the reason why is because it was not that it was like, oh, it's super quick. It's like, boom, here's this. And then back to the story. It was like, it's not him in a tank falling asleep and then just kind of going through his memories.
It's like a cool little flashback piece.
Yeah, and I mean, it just goes by super quick. It's smooth. It's not like that's the entire episode. And
I mean, his whole like line of being like people don't look down where they should, and then like uh they just never look past it. Like that's what's funny to me, is that like it's like a callback to where Cassian's going now. um this is the point where he's actually truly becoming the Cassian we know from Rogue One. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool of him like connecting his past and being like, oh no, that is a good reference.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love how connected he feels, not just um to like his family and everything there, but just to like the whole like town, like in general, and people look up to Cassian there, and it feels like, Cassian definitely has that vibe of a great leader, and I
Mhm.
just don't think he realizes that potential until later, near the end of the episode, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like I think he's starting to kind of realize like that people actually do look up to him
Mhm.
for kind of leading them. So I really liked his character development in the show a lot.
Yeah, and then we get another scene with him meeting the junkyard worker that helped him escape the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun seeing him come back in a way where he actually cares to see these kind of people, as opposed to just someone who made money and then came back. Was like, hey, I can get some of you guys out, like whatever. But this is the time that he's actually coming back for his mom.
Yeah.
And we get the whole play of the manifesto. Yeah.
Yes.
So Nemec's whole manifesto starts playing. So that was pretty cool.
That also was a cool callback to the first episode of where he's in the ship,
Mhm.
like, and like his like kind of clubhouse, if you will, and it's just an old ship. But oh, man, dude, no, like it's so cool to see how much Cassian has really grown through the show in 12 episodes, and th- there's a lot to kind of go over. And um do you think that when Andor came into the town, do you think he was thinking he was going to leave there alive, or do you think he was just like, all right, this is it? Because it seems like a lot of the people in the episode um that were going to like the riot area, like, I mean, of the funeral, like kind of had that sense of mind that they weren't going to make it.
I feel like he's going back with the notion of knowing that he might will not come back alive.
Yeah.
However, he's kind of like, you know what, I have something I need to do. I need to go pay my respects. Whether he gets out or not, I feel like that's his whole kind of thing. I mean, he's actually sat down and given the time to Nemec's manifesto. So it's kind of interesting. It's seeing he's I would say like he's almost there of that tipping point where he is the Cassian that we know, and it's not until later in the episode do I think that I feel like he's like really down on his luck right now and just sad about his mother's passing. Just wants to say goodbye to her, and he doesn't know what's coming after that. But when we see later in the episode, I feel like there's a little switch in his head, and he's like, you know what, I'm full for this now. And that's I would say that's his mother's speech.
Yeah, oh man, that speech, every time I hear it, gives me goosebumps, man. Like it really does. Um, that whole scene was written so well, and and just it just shows you how much culture that they've added into um that they've added to the Star Wars universe because of the show, and of just seeing like the sisters and then marching and the funeral and the band and everything. That really hyped me up, because we've never seen anything like this in Star Wars, like not at this level. and I want them to do more stuff like this. I'm hoping they also do this in the show Acolyte coming out next year. I hope maybe they do something like this in the Skeleton Crew. I want more culture from different planets in the Star
Mhm.
Wars universe because it's huge, it's massive, and there's no way that we've seen it all. And when every show comes out, it seems like we're getting a new expansion of the Star Wars universe and more planets because there's so much to learn about, and I'm glad that we learn about this planet of Ferrix because it's a very interesting culture. It's a beautiful culture, and their traditions are just very interesting to me, and I really hope that we see more stuff like that.
Oh yeah. And then our next scene is basically everyone is on the Imperial side is trying to figure out the best way to set up everyone around to the point where they know that Cassian's going to come to this funeral and they'll be able to nab him easily. And then our next scene after that is our cab driver speaking to one of our other friends who is, forget his name.
Who?
The
The
Imperial officer.
are you talking about the guy undercover?
No, not the one
That
that's undercover. I'm talking about the one that the cab driver speaks to.
Oh yeah, him. No, I can't see the other thing about the show, which is really sad because we should definitely know all this stuff. But uh to me it was really interesting um that he didn't give up like on the whole like Mon Mothma thing.
Mhm.
Um man, no. I really want to see more of the Empire and this kind of um this
I like.
whole yeah, sorry, God.
I mean, like for me, I like them all kind of going behind each other's backs, and it's playing into that whole thing of Nemix being like, "Hey, everyone is all fearful of each other." Um, the oppression is basically it's just more fear, and I really do feel like this is clicking of where he's the lieutenant's basically getting all this information from the cab driver, and he's like, finally we got the reason and all this kind of stuff, but they still don't understand that it's all just an out for Mon, which is pretty cool. But it is pretty interesting seeing how, like, hey, look, the other lieutenant like walks by and he's like, I see you're doing something a little shady there. I'm gonna just keep walking so that we don't have to deal with anything.
How do you feel that they killed that entire rebel cell just to make the emperor happy? Because that's essentially of what they did.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I mean,
No.
hey, it's adding more to this whole kind of, they are very scared. And the overall it's the emperor on top of everyone being fearful of the emperor. So I think that's adding more to it. I would have liked to see the outcome a little bit more, but I guess it does make sense. And then we have Luthen coming down in his ship and heading on towards the shipyard. What do you think of fun fact or fun thing? What do you think of Luthen's cane? Because he has the wooden cane and then he has a silver cane in this one. But it was interesting because everyone was like saying like, hey, that's probably like a lightsaber or something. And I was wondering, so I was looking at the different figures that they have, and they have a figure, the Black Series figure for Luthen
Yeah.
has him have a spiral like dagger that's inside of it. And I was like, that's very interesting to me because we never saw it on screen.
Right. Like of
We
him
never saw
use
him
it.
use it. or threaten anyone for it or anything like that.
I
So
could
it
see
was
the
like,
knife being a cover
hmm.
up. I could see the knife being a cover up, and they're like, oh hey, it's just a knife, but in reality, it could be a lightsaber. Because again, there's a lot of signs that are pointing to Luthen being a Jedi, that fell into darkness and is trying to come back to the light, and him being like, all right, to me, forming an alliance with different people and different groups, it might be the best way to go, um because there's a lot of signs that just kind of point him being a Jedi. That's what I'm hoping for. Will it happen? Maybe 40%, I'm thinking, but it's just me, I guess.
And then our next scene is back on more of the town of Ferrix, where we see like B2 Emo and our other friend going to go and they're hiding underneath a grate. So then, and Cassian is Cassian is hiding in underneath in the tube grate. They're going. The Imperial spy is looking at B2 Emo. But yeah, we get a whole meeting again between our two characters with Cassian and his other work friend. What did you think of the meeting again? His
um
name's like Basso, I think.
of the guy in the sewers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's his name?
uh,
Yeah.
I thought it was great. So his relationship with Marva was very interesting to me, because I didn't know if it was a love interest, or I didn't know if I mean, or like he was, just a family friend. But it
Mhm.
just seemed like they were like super super close, and I couldn't wrap my head
I
around
think
if they
that
were.
I think Marva was kind of like the town like mom to
Yeah.
everyone and would always stick up for everyone. And I feel like everyone kind of owes her a debt kind of situation. Um, I feel like there is something there that we haven't technically seen just yet. Um, but yeah, that was our major scene. And then Cassian basically says like, "Hey, like I'm gonna like take down this like full garrison." He's like learning about all this kind of stuff and figuring out like he's like, I don't really have a plan just yet, but I'm gonna make it work. And they're like, okay, we're gonna help you. We're gonna go look down for Marva. So interesting here. Then our next scene is back with Cyril and his Scottish friend.
Yeah, no, how do you feel about them switching hats? Because I thought that was just, it was just like, oh, okay, cool. Because of they like didn't really have any dialogue together within the entire episode, and they were just right next to each other. It was really funny.
Just switching hats. So basically now we have another key player from the episodes also landing on Ferrix. So we have everyone here. Everyone, the tension is rising as to what's going to happen at this funeral. Um, and then skipping ahead a little bit, we get into the beginning of that funeral with the drum sets and the tubes. I don't know what this band is actually called. I don't think it's said in the credits, but they're all playing the same percussion instruments that are used in the beginning opening, which is pretty cool. I really enjoyed that. So, what did you think of this beginning ceremony funeral piece?
I loved how they tricked the Empire and they moved up the timeline of it, because the Empire was not prepared, and they thought that because they're the Empire, that people would like fear, that I guess the Empire was like so confident that everything would go their way that they didn't think that they would move up the timeline like that and just be like, I don't care, you're the Empire. And they just did it. And then it threw them off guard. And by the time that they, got everything ready,
Mhm.
them marching through the streets and everything, a whole army of the people of the planet were there. And and it was awesome how they were walking through and just didn't really show that much emotion. Like by not showing a lot of emotion, they were showing a lot. Like to me of just walking through, not like, being sad or anything, but just kind of having that blank stare and just walking through the streets. And as they were walking, more people would join, even though they said that, oh, hey, for the funeral, you can only have like 40, I mean, like 30 people. And then they push for like 40 or something like that, and
Mhm.
then you end up seeing like the entire like town behind them. How did you feel the involvement of of B2?
Um, really loved it.
No.
Really, 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 really loved it. With him being the whole kind of little hologram producer. But yeah, we have Cassian figuring out the Luthen's here. All these different players are here. He's putting all the pieces together that, like, hey, like if all these people are coming here, it's definitely for me. Um, so what did you think of when they all pause and they get to hear the speech from Marvin?
I had goosebumps the entire time. Um, I Man, like I mean, it's really weird because there's some speeches in Star Wars where I'm just like, oh, like great, but that one was like a great like fire me up speech where like I want to go to war, I want to make a difference, and we really haven't gotten anything like that in Star Wars, possibly Rogue One, but which makes sense because it was most the same team that wrote Andor, but I don't know, man. Like I really enjoyed her speech. It really shows you, that you don't have to be a Skywalker or an Solo or Chewbacca or like just the original idea for Star Wars, A New Hope, and everything was great, but it's awesome that it shows you that it didn't start with them. I mean, it started with a kid on a planet that was just trying to survive, and then he was brought into a whole new world of pain and suffering, and even when all that's happening, at the end of the day, not just him, but a bunch of people on that planet and a bunch of people across the galaxy still know how to do the right thing, and that's what that speech was about, was not settling and getting up and standing up for what's right, even though there will be consequences, there will be chaos and maybe some death, but at the end
It'll
of the
be
day,
far worse to you know, conform to these people.
yes. And to me, that's what that speech was. And we really haven't gotten anything like that in Star Wars on the top of my head. I mean, can you think of anything where there was a speech like that? Yeah, exactly. So it was written so well. And I just remember kind of rising up off of the couch and being like, all right, let's go, let's go. And then like that Imperial officer, like oh yeah, and then how did you feel about them like swearing and in the show? Because there was honestly a lot of swearing in the show. Like not like, of them dropping the F bomb or anything. Uh w- um which apparently in her speech, the original idea was for her to drop an F bomb, but then they were like, but then Disney's like, all right,
Yeah, I would have loved to see that.
yeah. But yeah.
I mean, it's really cool. It's like, hey, like this is a serious take on Star Wars, which I don't think we've had that much of serious takes on Star Wars with it being so Disneyified. So this is just adding more to it, and I mean, I'm all for it. but I don't think that necessarily the way that Cassian, the Andor series is presented, needs to be all of Star Wars, which is a big point for me. Is that like I like that this is contained to this show. I would like it contained to a couple other shows, but I would never want this to be all of Star Wars.
Same. Um, it's just nice to have a different pace. Because as most of you know, I it wasn't that I didn't like the show at the beginning. It was like it was it was a very slow start for me, but after it picked up in the fourth episode and went on, like I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a ride, man! Like this is fantastic. I love it, and just building up to that final episode, the show's so worth it, and I can't wait to actually go back and binge watch the entire thing,
Mhm.
because it's definitely gonna make me appreciate it even more. Because of the show to me is a masterpiece. Yes, the first three episodes were slow, but there was a reason for that, and I understand that now. But I mean, I'm definitely excited to see more stuff like this because that whole speech, that whole fight was just fun. It was written so well, and for someone that's not a fan of Star Wars, definitely nailed the passion of it and it was done in a phenomenal way. And I can't wait to see like of what season 2 is going to be like because now these characters are established
Mhm.
and now we're moving towards like a closing timeline because it's going to lead directly into the events of Rogue One. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, that's this whole like sequence of like the whole kind of riot and rebellion piece of them just absolutely pushing back against the Empire is really cool. Yeah, because as soon as Marva basically says like fight the Empire, they go stop and completely just try and flip B2 emo over after trying to put a jacket on top of him
Yeah.
to stop the whole hologram, and I thought that was pretty funny. And then they just completely start fighting. Full on riot breaks out. Um, what do you think of that scene? Are you liking the original start of the battle?
Yeah, yeah. Uh what's the one character's name that starts with a B?
Barros?
Yeah,
Barrow?
yeah, yeah, him.
Yes.
So I love the fact that even though Marva wasn't there, Marva was definitely part of the fight, like in a
Mhm.
way, because he just uses her brick and just
Yeah.
smashes like just different people, and
Yeah.
then of just seeing him and go like, ah! like and then just kind of charges in, was like, yeah, let's go, and seeing right like full out riot shields in Star Wars was a very interesting take, because I never thought I would see riot shields like that because there are technically there are riot shields that show up in the Clone Wars. There are riot shields that showed up in the sequels, because you have the First Order troopers. But I wasn't expecting to see the Empire have them, and they did, and it was like, all right, interesting. But the whole fight scene to me was awesome, uh, of seeing all of the storm troopers, actually, you know, actually act like they're really good marksmen because they were actually hitting people.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened later down the timeline, where they're not the best shots, but well, actually, that's not true because if you watch Rogue One, they actually do, their jobs and they actually do hit people. It's just funny because in the original trilogy, it's just like they can't hit a damn thing. But yeah.
Yeah. And then we get our big pipe bomb explosion. It gets thrown behind their enemy lines, and not only does it explode in itself to create a big explosion, also tips over all of their thermal detonators and explodes them as well. So you get a whole bunch of people getting blasted back. Everyone who's looking on, the glass is like shattering from all the walls. Everyone's like knocked to their feet. It's dusty. It's all everything. Cassian has a moment to be able to get rescue Bix. Um, and basically we get everyone the aftermath of everyone trying to vacate the premises after that's happened, the whole bombing situation. Uh, so, what did you think of that scene?
Um, I I think the Empire was shocked. I think a lot of the people on Ferrix were shocked by it. I
Mhm,
didn't. I think after the heat of the moment, it like shows you of when you're doing something and the heat of the moment and everything is going on, and then after like something happens and affects everyone, you like under like it kind of takes you out and you're like, oh my gosh, like that happened, and you see that on all sides, and then you just see the chaos like just come back. It gets worse. um I man, no, it's Star Wars, but it feels like a it kind of felt like it it put war in Star Wars
mhm,
in this episode. And it just reminded me of like of how a lot of warfare happens today.
mhm,
It reminded me a lot of that because we haven't seen a fight like this really in Star Wars before with like the riots and everything. Not at this level, at least. Kind of in Clone Wars, but not at this level. So I thought it was very relatable to what we, you know, kind of have going on today in battles and stuff like that. But yeah.
Um, so then we get a shot of Dedra and all of the stormtroopers and some on turns as well, just absolutely mowing down as many people as possible. But they're still kind of dazed and confused. And in that sense, Dedra gets hit in the head with a rock and then gets knocked to the ground. So she starts absolutely panicking, um, just to be saved by Cyril.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think there's gonna be like a spark, like some type of love interest, like going down like in a year where they're like, oh, hey babe, how was work today?
I'm not necessarily sure. You also liked how the bell ringer just like absolutely kicks the
Oh my
stormtrooper out.
gosh,
Yeah, that was
yeah.
great, great scene.
He was
Um,
full out, just like bam, and then he comes up and he just kicks the stormtrooper and he goes flying out the tower, and the officer's like, "All right, well, I'm out," and then he just kind of runs away, and it was just funny.
mhm.
But yeah, so
Cyril finding her is very interesting because he has a I don't know what his passion is. I don't know if his passion is for her necessarily or his passion is for Cassian. Like I feel like his whole thing is that like she is the key to being able to get to where he wants to be. He wants to be back in the Empire. He wants to be high up, high ranking, so his mom gets off his back, and he wants revenge on Cassian. So as soon as he picks her up, brings her inside, she's having her like whole meltdown. He's finally finding like relief, knowing that he's probably going to get what he wants out of her. And I feel like she is having an all-out breakdown. I don't know if it's like that's how I saw the scene. A lot of people were being like, well, they're in love and she's feeling love for the first time. And I'm like,
I don't think
I
she's
think that
feeling
could be
love
it.
for the first time because of like, I mean, you like have to, you are part of the empire, so it's like some like people are like, oh yeah, she's a cool character, I'm rooting for her, but at the end of the day, she's part of the empire. She like tortures people. She is a ISBA agent. That's not um there's always a point where someone can become good. And that's a theme happening in Star Wars because of think about all the stuff that Anakin and Vader did throughout the
Mhm,
entire galaxy, right? At the end, his redemption was killing the most powerful, person in the galaxy that not only manipulated him into doing, some terrible things, but also doing terrible things to the galaxy itself. Uh, and with this character, I th- I think there is a point where she could be redeemed,
Mhm.
but that's a that's a very common theme for characters that are part of the dark side. And especially with all the new Disney projects that have come out, because you've got Iden Versio, you've got Agent Callus. Um, it's just like it's kind of a repeating theme. And I how would you feel if she just kind of stayed with the Empire and she didn't leave the Empire?
I don't know. I mean, that'd be a fun little character moment. I think either or I would be happy with. Um, I just want it's just cool seeing her actually fearful. Like it's kind of like she probably hadn't touched that kind of fear in a little bit from being with the Empire. And it was like, this is raw, real, and you could die here at any moment. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
It's like where they finally go like, wow, maybe I am not as powerful as I completely thought I was. Which is something I really like seeing when people from the Empire start getting that click inside their head. They're like, whoa, maybe I am wrong. But I think she'd double down rather than take away from it personally. But we'll have to see. And then we get the takeoff sequence. So they have all the main players of Ferrex in the little takeoff ship, including B2 Emo. And he even has a whole little conversation with Cassian, and Cassian basically gives him a job to make sure everyone's okay before he goes. And Cassian decides to leave them and let them go on their way to escape.
What do you think the reaction on set was when they actually knocked him over? Because of that, like, kind of took me back to when they of the first season of Mando, where the comedians like had baby Grogu and in the satchel, and then one of them like punched it really hard, and then John Favreau had to walk over and be like, "Hey, that right there is a lot of money," and I felt like that was not a stunt droid. It looked like the real thing, and the fact that the officer just walked up and just knocked it over, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money.
Personally, I feel like B2 Emo's parts in general are probably like a lot easier to control in the sense of he's four wheels and like a body frame, and all we see in this point is I don't even think we see him rolling. I think it's literally just like a double. Like I feel like you could 3D print that, paint it like to look nice, fill it with like a weight, and then just knock it over. And then your next scenes you would have different versions. Like I genuinely feel like it was that. Like I don't think it's one that they're like, you know what? If this tips over, we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
Because his design doesn't lend itself to being complicated, whereas the design in comparison to like BB-8 is more annoying, or R2 is more annoying, because R2's like articulated on 3, whereas B2 Emo is articulated on 4 little pegs. So like it's probably easier to drive him around.
Yeah.
And then we basically just start getting all these little epilogue bits. We get one of Mon Mothma's daughter going and meeting with the gangster son, basically being betrothed. And as unfortunate as she didn't want it to happen, I believe it is happening because her daughter is an absolute fanatic in the old ways of Shrangela.
And it's really funny to me too because of, well, I mean, it's very interesting because we don't see her family in any of the future of Star Wars. Like this is the only time that we really see her family, because we don't see her in Rebels. We don't see her family in Rebels or in Rogue One or anything. So I think at some point, I think something happens to where her family is no longer supporting her, or they find out and then they want nothing to do with her and they're full out with the Empire, and then she just has to live with that. But her like daughter has already been acting through the entire show that she wants nothing to do with her. She's made that very clear.
Yeah, we get our Scottish friend just drinking on the side.
Yep. Classic. Which I don't think he had any lines during this entire thing, right?
No, I don't believe so.
No. Nope.
And then we get Luthen returning to his ship. And once he gets back, Cassian is also there. And basically says, like, hey, you know what? You got two options. Like, you can either kill me right now, or I get to come with me.
Yeah.
And I think that's I genuinely feel like Luthen would have killed him directly on the spot if he didn't just see, like, hey, that is the Cassian that I always wanted you to be. So
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
He was also smiling at the end as well. And I mean, because something else I'm curious about is, are they going to have that mindset in the future for Cassian where he's going to be the most wanted through the entire empire? Or do you think he'll just kind of fall into the shadow and be like, all right, well,
I feel like we're farther ahead to where we start having bigger players in the empire, like that are against the empire. Like, I mean, I feel like they would be more after Saw right now than anything.
Yeah.
So it is interesting seeing new players like Cass. So I feel like he'll even work with Saw as well previously, maybe in the next season. But we will have to see.
I'm hoping that for the next season that we actually get a scene where Cassian and Saw like actually interact.
Mm-hmm.
Because of you like really didn't see them like in Rogue One when Cassian walked in, he saw they like made eye contact. They didn't have any lines. But I don't know if they had the idea set of, all right, we are gonna make a show with Cassian as the main character or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad that they didn't like leave it to where that was their first encounter, because that does, open up the possibility of them actually like, interacting and going on missions in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where the show ends. For a lot of people didn't know this, but there was an after credit scene. It wasn't really a shocker. I like heard the of the theories of the items that like of the actual mechanical things that were building in the prison was for a TIE fighter. Because if you look at this, like that is like very similar to the shape. So a lot of people thought it was for like a TIE fighter like wing, but it like kind of takes like the shot opens up on a golden satellite, and they're installing the pieces that Cassian and everyone were building, and then it kind of backs up and it shows you it's the Death Star.
Yeah.
And it's very far in advance. Like I thought
we know that the next, like, this is when it slows down the most, and that's why it's the last part of the Death Star that needs to be completed is the laser plus harvesting all the kyber crystals. Yeah. The shot echoes the same one in Rogue One, and it is kind of cool having Cassian be a hand of something he made is the same thing that kills him in the future.
That is very ironic. It's it's very interesting to now watch the show and then watch Rogue One and just see how like Cassian kind of reacts to different things. Because in your opinion, do you think he knows at this point that like the stuff that he was building for the prison was for the Death Star during the events of Rogue One? Or do you think, that
no one knew?
Yeah.
No, I don't think anyone knew. Because as soon as the first laser test is done, then people are like, oh no.
Okay, so I will rephrase it, like not him knowing exactly about the Death Star, but some type of big like thing that was like important for the Empire that could maybe be in the lines of
I don't think so.
Killer, but
I don't think so, because I feel like that's something you wanted to keep under wraps so much. Like 100%. He could definitely think like we're building something. I don't think we're building something for the Empire. Yes. We're doing it by hand. Yes. This is going to take us forever. It's probably like TIE fighters. It's probably like something that I have no real idea about. I'm not really, they're not even the position to ask really. But I feel like if they would think of anything, it'd be like a TIE fighter.
Yeah.
Anything, it would be like more troop transport stuff. Like nothing that was the mega weapon because they're making such a small part that goes into something so big that I feel like there's no chance they would figure it out from just what was there. Because I don't think almost anyone has the proper information of what's actually going on with the Death Star. It's a very tight-lipped on who knows. I'm pretty sure. So that was the episode. What did you think about it?
It was fantastic. It was probably my favorite episode besides the heist because I really really liked the heist episode. Um, there were a lot of things that I didn't happen in the show, which I hope they would, but there's a chance it might happen in the next season because of um when this is happening, Mon Mothma doesn't have any contact in the entire show with Bail Organa, and I thought she was going to, and she didn't. We did not get any high empire cameos like the Emperor or how do you pronounce his name? The Masamita. Like no like kind of those cameos, and I thought they would, but we didn't. So
I'm completely fine with that because of how much Filoni has made cameos not worth as much as they used to be. Like as much as cameos as I was like Saw's here. That makes sense. He fits well. That's a cameo, kind of. If you want to put in Easter eggs, that's as much as a cameo as I like. But it's annoying when all the same key players start coming together all at once. Like, let's say, like, just randomly Ahsoka pops up and is like, hey, look, you've been messaging Ahsoka this whole time. I feel like that draws away from the series and starts sucking it into something else.
I don't want that. Because, some people would say that the Ahsoka is now more of a major character than the Emperor now because of just how much she pops up in things. But if the Emperor showed up, to me, it would be like, oh, you know what? That makes sense because you're in Coruscant. You are involved in the Senate. The Emperor is in charge of the Senate. So that makes sense to me. Now, if Ahsoka showed up, that would definitely be like a lot of fan service that we don't need. And I'm really glad that we didn't get that. Now, if Dave Filoni was involved, most likely we would have gotten a lot of cameos from like different characters from the Clone Wars, expanded universe, which again I'm fine with, but it has to work in the story. And the way that this story was written, it was like Star Wars, but not in your face Star Wars. And we haven't had a project like that like ever. And it's awesome that we're getting that like in this show because it is Star Wars, but it's a different feeling of it that we have never really experienced before. And a lot of people don't like change, and if they do, they like kind of struggle with it. And I think this is something the Star Wars universe definitely needs to build better stories because we are getting the show Acolyte, which that will be a Sith driven like story. Like that will show you so apparently some of it will kind of show you how the Sith infiltrated like the Jedi and the Senate and everything like in the show. And it's going to be so cool. And we really haven't had a story like that where it's Star Wars, but it's it's not dealing with a Skywalker or a Palpatine or like just anything like that. Like there is way more characters in the Star Wars universe than a Skywalker. And as great as Anakin Skywalker was, and that timeline and everything, there's so much more to explore. There's so many more characters and stories to explore. And I'm glad we're at that point in the the storytelling of the Star Wars universe, because I remember being a kid and just, I mean, and I'm I I make the jokes all the time of being like, oh, like Max Rebo and all that stuff. But honestly, I really like Max Rebo because he's this guy that is at a very important event, right? And he is a musician, but he's not like, it just seems like he shouldn't be there, but he is. And then crazy enough, he survives those big events, and he just, and then we see him again, and it's just like he is just a guy playing an instrument, living his daily life, trying to feed his family, and he's just there, and he's just a random guy in the Star Wars universe. He doesn't have the Force, as far as we know. He's not a Skywalker. Like, he's not part of the rebellion of the Empire. He's just there, and it's so cool that there's, that we're at that point where we're telling, stories about these characters like that. And the fact that we got Cassian from one movie, and now we got a whole show about him, and like, now it makes the movie Rogue One even better,
Even better,
because
yeah.
of you understand where he came from, you understand why he did what he did. Season 2 will make that, like, feeling that we have about him now even, like, bigger and more emotional. um and now, if you think about it, now when you see him die, you'll be able to sympathize with him more, because you'll see his whole journey, because we didn't get that, in Rogue One. We, like, kind of, saw him in for about 2 hours, right? And then,
Mhm.
all these characters dies, and it's like, oh yeah, it's sad, people dying and everything, but not really knowing them is just like, it doesn't give you that full emotion. But now, going back and watching season 1, and then when season 2 comes out, that scene, it will probably have a lot of people crying, because it's like, for all what he did, what he sacrificed to do, all the people around him that were killed, like, fighting for this cause. It it's incredible, and I'm glad that we're at this point. But
It's interesting that I think that if I feel like I wanted this kind of seriousness from the Kenobi series, and I feel like a lot of people wanted more of a darker, serious take from the Kenobi series. Um, the problem, I think, that even Ben brought this up, is that a lot of what we knew originally for old Kenobi's story of him being on his own was done in The Mandalorian with the whole Great Dragon. A lot of that was already done in Mandalorian season 2, and I felt like it was written into a writing circle hell, whereas they didn't have the leeway to do what they really wanted. They only had 6 episodes. They could only do so much, and I feel like they didn't get to do what they really wanted to do. Whereas Cassian, Andor in general, just feels like they got to do what they really wanted to do. Within the Star Wars constraint, they still got to pull off what they wanted to do, because it's so felt that their own director style is so felt throughout the entire series.
yeah.
And that's funny, because Rogue One is the exact same way. So I can only hope that more shows end up pulling that off. Yeah, I mean, Acolyte's probably going to be like a darker take, which I would completely be on board with. So only time will tell, I suppose.
Yeah. And that kind of leads us into our next kind of topic, which is the all the new projects happening next year. And I know we, kind of talk about it on each episode, but I want to talk about, like, our hopes and ambitions for these series. Uh, let's start off with the Bad Batch. Season 2 is coming out on January 4th. Very exciting stuff.
Excited?
What do you want for what's the main thing that you want in the show to happen, or at least reveal?
More explanations on Omega's origin, I think.
Okay.
I feel like there's a little bit more there that I'd like to see. Love to see some new characters. Love to see some old characters. Um, I don't know. It's hard because I like seeing that transition between clone troopers to stormtroopers. I think that's a really cool transition, and I feel like they're showing it through the show. Uh, and basically just having the Bad Batch be the kind of bridge between the two. I think that's really cool.
Something else as well is we know that the Emperor actually does play a part in this, especially from the trailers.
Mhm.
But something that I'm looking forward to, but I guarantee it's going to make me cry, is that we'll probably get a face off between Rex and Commander Cody, and that's going to be a very very sad thing to see.
That would be cool.
Because we know Commander Cody plays a part in this. He in the trailers we like see him have a scene with Crosshair, and it's just going to be a sad thing, man. Like it's we like truly didn't fully know what happened to Cody. Um, there was stuff in Legends, but canon changes everything. And actually, fun fact, which I found about this one, because every week we've been doing character of the week, and last week it was the Death Star, and I know this, but the which I told Josh this morning, but the Death Star that you see in the original Star Tours flight, apparently it is the Death Star 3, and Legends that was made shortly after the Battle of Endor, and that's why you see it pop up. It wasn't just there to be like, oh, here's a fun trench run scene. There was an actual story of where the Empire made a third Death Star, and in Star Tours you actually fly and do the trench run on it, and I didn't know that it was the Death Star 3 until recently. So very interesting stuff. We always do a poll every week for character of the week. Ship of the week edition was last week, but yeah. So, but anyways, no, it's really interesting of how they like still add stuff from Legends, but then they kind of twist it and they match it into canon.
Mm-hmm.
But probably the Cody and Rex thing, and then seeing Gunji survive. That's also going to be very tragic for me because I really liked his character because there's not that many Wookiee Jedi. So
Yeah.
seeing him alive and like in the trailer was like, oh my gosh, let's go. So I'm really curious on how that's going to play. Hopefully he survives and he just, grows old and retires or something. But
please.
yeah, like, come on, man. But yeah, so that's probably like the main thing I'm hoping that comes out of it. I think we'll get more stuff about Omega. I think we'll learn more about it. I don't know if we'll go into the cloning facility stuff that much. If we do, I'll be happy. I know we'll see.
You feel like we're going to get a big connection towards Grogu with the cloning stuff. Do you think that they're going to explain the whole connection between the person who had the insignia on his shoulder from like the doctor from the original Mandalorian?
Yeah.
Do you think they'll ever explain that?
I think they could. I mean, I know there's some people trying to have the theory of that, like maybe Gunji was the one that saved Grogu. I'm just like, I don't know. But they are filming. Okay, so they are getting ready to film season 4 of Mando, and and I'm hoping that in season 3 maybe we get more of a flashback or like some type of more of an image of who actually rescued Grogu, because that's a big mystery.
Reva
or Mace Windu.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen.
I know, but if Dave Filoni's involved, yeah. But we have Mando season 3 coming out in February, and from all the stuff I've seen from the trailers, I'm so excited. I'm really really excited for Mando season 3. I love the show. I love the first 2 seasons. I loved season 2. Well, pretty much season 3.5 and and the Book of Boba Fett. I can't believe that we got all those episodes that we did, and the fact that we are approaching a very crazy year of Star Wars is so exciting to me, because just adding more to the story and more things to watch is very exciting. But not only Mando season 3 will be coming out, but just shortly after that is going to be Jedi Survivor. Now, January 8th is when the Game Awards are, right?
Game Awards are pretty soon. Don't know the exact date on it, but I mean, hey, it would be cool to see a little trailer during that time, because we know that a lot of game trailers end up dropping.
Yeah.
And/or I would also like to get a Battlefront game, which it's kind of funny to me, because I'm like, if you know that everyone, like, what is a profitable franchise? They have failed every single time on the Battlefield games. Like, for the last 5 years, they've just been absolutely losing on Battlefield games. However,
Star Wars Battlefront 2, man,
Battlefield in comparison to Battlefront is completely different. So if they just go and move their divisions, say, you know what, we're just gonna go all in on this Star Wars thing and hope for the best, and they put every single one of their team on that game, they could make back the money that they've lost. I can guarantee it. It is Star Wars. I mean, have all these different game modes, mod support, all this kind of stuff. I don't know why they don't just do it. Maybe it is in the works, and you would see something cute like they did over when they did it at that first trailer where they had the AT-AT footprint, AT-AT footprint. I thought that was pretty cool.
No, I would love that. I mean, if you honestly look at EA, Star Wars Battlefront was great, and Star Wars Battlefront 2 was iffy at launch, but it got so much better through time. It got so much better. And near the end, I was so impressed, and I was like, oh my gosh, we are probably getting Coruscant soon, and there's a chance that we might be getting stuff from season 7 of Clone Wars with Mandalore. And they were like, all right, we're canceling all of our assets and we're moving to the new Battlefield. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. New game comes out. First off, that trailer for the new Battlefield, I will say, is amazing. I love that trailer. But then you get the game, and it's just, unfortunately, it was not good.
It actually just went free on Game Pass as well.
Wow. Wow. Because it really is rough. Because I love Star Wars Battlefront 2. I still play it. Their numbers for their game lobbies are still up. It's crazy. People love that game. That is such a fun online game. And I swear, if they add different elements from Call of Duty and stuff in it for the next one, that would be amazing. I want more planets. I want more characters. I want more customization. That's probably the biggest thing I want out of the next Star Wars Battlefront is the customization. But yeah. But yeah, so there's a chance that we'll be getting a trailer for Jedi Survivor on if I said January 8th, I'm sorry, I meant December 8th, because of the Game Awards are coming up. But yeah, so you've got that. You got Mandalorian season 3. My main expectations for this is to fill in that mystery of who rescued Grogu. I'm also hoping that we maybe see more stuff that ties into the sequels to make them more relevant, which I think we will, because we're already getting a Easter egg from Rise of Skywalker, which is Babu Frick himself and then his species. So and I think it will tie directly into Ahsoka as well, and just seeing cameos from Star Wars Rebels and Clone Wars, probably Rex. I'm very hopeful. I'm very optimistic. But that show is is getting better with every season, and I'm very, very excited for it. And then after that, we'll, go into Ahsoka, and that is going to be a journey. Do you think there will be time travel of some
Dimension
sorts?
travel.
Yeah.
I don't know about time travel. I would say that she could look into it but not interact with it. So it's a flashback and a memory that she doesn't have of the past. However, she can't change anything in it. That's what I think is going to happen. We're going to find out more information like how the Jedi came around, what it means to be the new kind of person you are today. She takes the old teachings and the new things, and she basically unlocks her mind to the point where she's like, why would we ever pick a side? Let's just stay true and be good. And I was like, yeah, that's what I think is legitimately going to happen. I have no clue where it's going to go besides a whole Thrawn thing.
Thrawn is also a big expectation. I think they could have him like in an end credit scene for Mando season 3 of where he shows up. I don't know if he'll play a big part. I mean, it definitely feels like they are leading to, which we've talked about this a lot, but it feels like they're leading to this Avengers Endgame type style like battle of where they'll all like team up, and you'll see Luke, and maybe you'll see Mara Jade, and you'll see some of these other characters just kind of line up and get ready to fight Thrawn, and then somehow Darth Maul is back. And I'm just kidding, but no, but it's gonna be very interesting to see that lineup of just like of if it will take place on Mandalore and they'll try and fully take it back, or it will be somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I'm very excited for all of those possibilities because the New Republic is a thing right now, like during this timeline, and they are trying to establish law and like kind of get the planets more in line and everything. Not as bad as the Empire, but like more in a peaceful way. So it's going to be very interesting to see if maybe they go in the same direction as the sequels and legends of where like they kind of put elements in there from it, because you have that 25-year time gap now um from from the Mandalorian season 1 all the way to Force Awakens. So there's a lot that can happen. But then we've got Skeleton Crew. Skeleton Crew is coming out next year as well. What are your thoughts on this show? Because this show has a high budget. This show
Is there any other concept art than just that piece? But I was wondering. Like a little 80s thriller mystery sounds very, very good. Sounds fun, sounds interesting. I want it to be very swashbuckling kind of feature because I feel like we've lost our whole swashbuckle kind of films that you see nowadays. And I feel like Star Wars is a perfect thing with spaceships, ships. I think that like one captain, which is his character, and then a whole bunch of kids, and they're going around doing some like mystery stuff like the Goonies and that kind of feeling and vibe. Like, I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah. I said that I wanted the show to have the vibe of putting in like a classic VHS, like and just feeling like a kid again. I mean, I do that with Star Wars, but I think this would be a great opportunity to like kind of have like the 80s vibe, and I think that would be so much fun.
Definitely, 100%.
So much fun. But yeah, and then you finally got the show Acolyte. That is coming
everybody's favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, this one, I think it just has the most intrigue and mystery towards it, and I feel like it's set in a time period that I think everyone is curious and mysterious about. So I think that it's finally good to start seeing that on screen, some previous prequel stuff, end of High Republic kind of stuff. All we've seen basically of it so far is just in the books, and I feel like when we get some visual media, we'll start clicking for other people and they want to know more about it. So it's very interesting to me.
Yeah. So and then you've also got Indiana Jones 5, and you also have the continuation of the show Willow, which
Yeah, the first 2 episodes are out right now.
the first 2 episodes are out right now. If you haven't watched the original film that's on Disney Plus, it's very, very good. That was one of George Lucas's like kind of first projects besides Indiana Jones and Star Wars, where he kind of like went to start to branch out more. And he was waiting for the technology in the world to catch up before he made the other movies like the prequels and the sequels, because he actually did have a whole like a whole blueprint plan of what 1, 2, and 3, 7, 8, and 9 were going to be. But yeah, so that show is out now. The movie's on Disney Plus. Go watch it, and that will kind of be like our kind of vibe of Star Wars, even though it's not Star Wars, until January 4th when season 2 of The Bad Batch comes out. I'm expecting a new trailer for The Bad Batch season 2 to come out soon.
Christmas time.
Yep.
I feel like we're gonna get a lot more trailers.
Yes, we will. Yes,
The Disney
we will.
gift of new trailers. I feel like that's what we're gonna drop.
That is the dream. That is the dream. But yeah. I believe that's it. Did you have a great things? Did you have a good holiday?
Yes, I did.
Excellent.
Actually,
Yeah. Same. We all hope that you had a great Life Day. There were a bunch of us that that went out there wearing the Life Day robes. That was actually a lot of fun. But yeah, so well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. We're on Instagram at Star Stuff Podcast. We do characters of the week. We drop the news. We drop memes. It's fun. It's a great time. We're also on Twitter at Stuff Pod, TikTok, Star Stuff Podcast. We also have an email, starwarstuffpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Star Wars Stuff Group, or the Star Wars Stuff Podcast page. Please go on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review or any type of review. We love hearing, your honesty and hearing back from you, even though if it's all about David, it's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. I say that every time because if you read some of the comments, it's like, oh man, like this like podcast is okay, but man, that like David guy is amazing. So it's just super funny to us, and it's kind of an inside joke. And then you have we're also on Twitch, SW Stuff 77. Our plan for when the new game Jedi Survivor comes out, that Josh and I will be playing that at the same time. And then I think our goal was to kind of do like a full day where we try and beat the game in one day, and we're just streaming at once.
Yeah, it'd be fun to be able to talk about it in all full spoiler review and give our 2 cents about it.
And we're also on Patreon. We are on Patreon. We have commentaries on there. We have a lot going on our Patreon. So if you're interested in exclusive stuff and just different elements of Star Wars, go check out our Patreon. We would not be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. So we appreciate you. Also, go check out Manscaped. But with that being said, I'm Colin.
I'm Josh.
And may the Force be with you.
Always.